who do we actually want to be drafting these guys? That's right. We're talking about the NFL draft once again here on the ADP Average Dudes podcast. I'm your average dude, Matt Mormon, and this time we're going to go look at these things from a little bit of a different standpoint here. We're going to look at the consensus mock draft database, and we're going to look at these prospects and see who all is being projected to take these guys and which of those landing spots we actually want for these prospects for fantasy purposes. So let's go ahead and pull up the mock draft here as I find the correct button. That is not the button. There's the button. Okay. So first of all, Caleb Williams, we're just going to skip him. Yes, we want him to go to the Chicago Bears. All right, Jayden Daniels here. Let's see where all he's projected. Most of it's going to be Washington, New England. Is there anybody else that's a surprise? Okay. There's one that has a surprise. The Seahawks Wire has him going to Minnesota. I would probably prefer that over Washington. But I think incredibly unlikely. Although, if Jayden Daniels falls all the way to number 11 and goes to Minnesota, I think that probably means the NFL is kind of out on Jayden Daniels, which would not be real encouraging. It's kind of very Justin Fields in that regard, where it's like the league kind of told us what they thought of him by having him go, as far down as he did, and then the lack of trade interest rather in Justin Fields. So if Jayden Daniels falls away to 11, yeah, for fantasy it'd still be incredibly exciting. That's probably the best landing spot would be Minnesota. But again, for these it's incredibly unlikely. This one's got the Giants moving up to 3. That's the only real scenario I can see where a team moves up to 3 to get him if New England decides they don't want to go that route. I think Minnesota probably would be the best case scenario for that. Drake May, it's going to be a lot of the same teams as Jayden Daniels, I believe. Let's go on in here and take a look. A lot of New England's, a lot of Washington's. Yep. Yeah, there's a Minnesota one there too. So again, I think Minnesota would be the best landing spot really for any quarterback. But I prefer Washington as a landing spot definitely over New England. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., this was probably going to be a bunch of Arizona's, but we'll see maybe some teams trade up. Maybe a couple New England spattered in there as well. Arizona, Chicago at 9. How in the world will you even get to that point? Chargers, oh gosh. I prefer Arizona as a landing spot for Marvin Harrison. I really do. Indy at 4. That's interesting. You have Anthony Richardson there. You have Michael Pittman there, of course, already. I think I prefer Arizona over Indianapolis as a landing spot for Marvin Harrison Jr. because the sheer target monster that he can become. In Indy, you're going to have a bit of a running-based offense. You're also splitting some time with Michael Pittman Jr. there. So, yeah, I think definitely the good news for him, again, much like the other two with Jayden Daniels or Drake May, which are ones in Washington, it's kind of the consensus pick there. So that's good. All right, Malik Neighbors. A lot of places, pretty much everybody, myself included, has him mocked to the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't want that, though. I don't think LA is a great landing spot for him. Let's see who we can have maybe trade up to 5 here to take Malik Neighbors. You got the Giants there at 6. I prefer the Chargers over the Giants. I prefer Arizona. The Raiders, okay. Bears, may he be fighting with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore in that depth chart, though. Okay, there might be our winner right there. The New York Jets trading up to pick 5 to take Malik Neighbors. Aaron Rodgers gets his first-round receiver finally. That's from The Athletic. I think that's probably our winner here. Atlanta at 8. That's interesting too. Would I prefer Malik Neighbors a Jet or Malik Neighbors a Cardinal? Arizona or Atlanta, you're dealing with Kyle Pitts and you're dealing with Garrett Wilson and Kirk Cousins. Probably not quite as good as Aaron Rodgers, but pretty darn close at this point. Jets, you kind of just have Garrett Wilson there. Both teams, by the way, have great running games. Jets have a better defense. I think I prefer Atlanta. I think Atlanta is my favorite landing spot here for Malik Neighbors out of all of them that are being mocked. All right, we'll skip down here to the next fantasy prospect, Brock Bowers. So Brock Bowers is an interesting one because off the top of my head, I don't know if there is a landing spot that is going to move him up to me. A lot of these receivers we're about to get into, there's a lot of leading spots that you can look at and say, well, if they go to Jacksonville, if they go to Buffalo, we're going to like that a whole lot for those guys. Brock Bowers is really interesting. I'm curious to see who all this list is going to entail, because I just feel like every landing spot for him is either neutral or actually kind of bad. So let's see where they have him going. Personally, I have him mocked right now to Denver, to the Broncos. Jets, Bengals, Bears, Broncos, Colts, Jets, Colts, Chargers. A trade back for the Chargers, and they take him at 10. Okay, I think I think they're the ones who had Neighbors going to the Jets. So that would be a Jets-Chargers trade. Jets take Neighbors at 5. Chargers take Brock Bowers at 10. All right, winner, chicken dinner. That's my favorite land spot for both these guys, I think, after all. Like, because they're tied together, I kind of want that. Or you know what? LA can trade with Atlanta and then still take Bowers at 10. The Chargers are definitely the best landing spot for Brock Bowers. If he goes there, you are then up there with run first offense. So the Titans can be on the field a lot. Even though he's not much of a blocker, I think he'd still be on the field a ton. An offense where the Titans are just not going to come off the field. Greg Roman also has a huge history of tight ends just really getting funneled targets in his offense. And so this is probably my best case scenario for Brock Bowers is a Chargers trade back, and then they take Brock Bowers. The Rams at 19. So I did one mock a couple weeks ago where I had Brock Bowers fall a little bit, and he ended up being with the Rams. I'm really excited about that possibility too. But no, yeah, the Chargers definitely take the cake. And my goodness, in that scenario, he would move up so far in rookie drafts. Like, he would definitely be over Odunze. He would definitely, which by the way, I skipped Odunze. I need to go back to him. I think he'd be the 105 in rookie draft. Would he go over a quarterback? He might go over the quarterback in New England in that scenario. Let's back up here. Let's go to Odunze because I skipped over him when I was scrolling there. Bears, Giants. I think Giants are my favorite spot for him. Look, if he can get to Jacksonville somehow, that's the dream. And as we get further into the second half of receivers here, I'm not going to want to repeat myself on teams. So I'm going to kind of limit myself to like one guy per team, or else I'm just going to put everyone on Jacksonville and Buffalo. So I'm going to actually remove the idea of Jacksonville for Rome Odunze. I'm going to say my best case scenario. Oh, Bengals is interesting. If you trade away T. Higgins, that's actually an amazing idea. The Bengals trade away T. Higgins, replace him in the offense and his role in the offense with Rome Odunze. That's the best case scenario for Rome Odunze for sure. I think outside of that, him going to New York and just being a target monster, being an alpha on the outside. New Orleans, that's interesting too. But I feel like him and Chris Olave are so similar players. Yeah, I think a Bengals landing spot would be ideal in a T. Higgins trade correlated with that. If not, I'm going to go Giants for Rome because he's so different from everybody else in that offense. I think he could just be an absolute target hog. J.J. McCarthy, maybe the most controversial and talked about player in this entire draft. He can go anywhere from second overall down to probably 11th. Like, he's not getting past the Vikings. And yeah, a whole bunch of them have the Vikings and Giants, basically. There's a Rams pick in there. That's interesting. The idea of the Rams. I don't see the Rams doing that, though. They wouldn't sit on a guy for a year like that. Not with the way that this team has operated for the last 8 years. Yeah, Minnesota's the spot. Minnesota, not only is that where I want JJ to go, is where I think he will go. Bo Nix, can I say I don't care? That's mean. That's rude. I'm sorry, Bo. I just don't think he's a very impressive prospect at all. Yeah, it's a bunch of orange, a bunch of purple here with Broncos and Vikings. Personally, I think he falls to round 2. I would like to see him go to New Orleans and kind of sit behind Derek Carr in round 2. Or go to Vegas, but being in round 2 to Vegas. Vegas is definitely a better landing spot for him than Denver is. Because Vegas, you have Davante Adams. And Davante Adams, just giving him that alpha wide receiver 1 over there that you just don't have in Denver, I think that would absolutely be a great scenario for Bo Nix. I do think Nix could have some success in that Sean Payton offense because so many throws are so short and quick, and they're kind of decided for you before the fact. It's not like an Oregon offense in that regard. So Bo Nix could have some success in Denver, but I would rather see him be in Vegas. Brian Thomas Jr. So the consensus has him going to Jacksonville. I think that's my favorite spot for Brian Thomas Jr. Probably. Although he's more of a field stretcher, though, so he kind of overlaps a little bit with Gabe Davis. Put him in Indy. That's interesting. And that might actually be my favorite spot for him, is the Colts. Because he is different from Michael Pittman Jr. My goodness, look at this board, though, right here. Like, these are just, it's a whole cavalcade of different landing spots for him. Pittsburgh, I feel like you're too redundant there with George Pickens. Arizona, in a world where Arizona does not take Marvin Harrison Jr., that could be really, really good for him as well. He can kind of be a field stretcher, can basically be in the Hollywood role from a year ago. That would actually be really, really good. LA is also interesting kind of in that regard. I'm going to go ahead and say Indianapolis is my favorite landing spot for Brian Thomas Jr. Michael Penix, they have him going to Minnesota here. And you know what? Because I said JJ's going to Minnesota, I'm going to pick someone else here. I'm going to remove Minnesota from conversation. So, gosh. Atlanta at 8. Oh, that would rock my world. I'm not going to lie if that happened. The Giants at 26. That's actually really interesting. They kind of can then move on from Daniel Jones and make Michael Penix kind of the guy of the future. That's actually a really interesting landing spot. The Raiders, I think, are probably my number one pick for Penix because, again, it's a guy who can kind of focus and funnel targets to Devontae Adams. The Rams are interesting, though. Actually, I like that one a lot. Put Penix behind Stafford for a year, let him sit. I'm gonna go with that. It's not the best fantasy outcome because he's not gonna play immediately, but I think for a long-term health standpoint, yeah, I think I'm actually gonna take that. I'm gonna take LA for Michael Penix as my favorite landing spot. AD Mitchell here, Adonai Mitchell, a very I've seen some comparisons like a DK Metcalf type of receiver here, very raw. Lots of people have him going to Buffalo. And this is where I'll cash in my Buffalo chip here. I'll put it out on Adonai Mitchell. He can go there, step right into the Diggs role, be the alpha in the offense. I like that Green Bay pick a lot. I think Green Bay is sneakily still in need of like a wide receiver 1. I really like Jaden Reed. I still have hope for Christian Watkins. I think Romeo Doubs is a really good player. I think Nix. I think Nix is a good player too. I think they're missing that true one, though, that true alpha. And I don't know if Adonai Mitchell is that guy or not, but I don't mind taking the shot on it, though, for sure. They've been in kind of a fantasy landing spot for me for Brandon Ayuk is to Green Bay. I think that would be really, really interesting just to see them just like plop a true alpha receiver into that and hook him up with Jordan Love. But I'm going to cash my Buffalo chip here, though. I'm going to go Buffalo for AD Mitchell. Ladd McConkey to San Francisco. Oh, boy. That'd be fun. We have the Ravens. We have the 49ers, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Bills, of course. But I'm going to remove the Bills here. I don't think the Chiefs are all that good of a landing spot for a wide receiver. And a lot of these are being written in the last couple days here. Like a lot of them say April 18th. And I'm recording this on the 20th. I don't think the Chiefs are that good of a landing spot, though, because, like, Rashee Rice probably only be suspended for, like, 2 games, right? Maybe it's 4 games. But regardless, I don't think that's worth taking a first-round pick to cover, like, the first 4 games of a season, because a lot of times these rookies take a few games to get going, right? Like, it's very rare that a rookie receiver just hits the ground and immediately major impact, especially a late part of the first round rookie wide receiver, right? Like, you have your Puka Nacua, of course, but it just doesn't happen a ton. And so I actually don't think the Chiefs are that great of a landing spot for a wide receiver this year. The Chargers at 23, that's interesting. That's a scenario I'm sure where they don't take a receiver early. Again, Buffalo, I'm removing them. Pittsburgh, that would be interesting for Ladd. Oh man, Cincinnati. I do love the idea of the Bengals of Ladd McConkey. He can kind of fill in where Tyler Boyd was. He's a future replacement for T. Higgins as the wide receiver 2. I'll pencil that in. I'll say Cincinnati Bengals are my favorite landing spot for Ladd McConkey. All right, next up we have Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver from Texas who broke the 40-yard dash record. And again, I get the infatuation with putting a guy on the Chiefs like that. They just signed Hollywood Brown. They're getting Rashee Rice back. I really don't understand the need the idea of a need here, a wide receiver for the Chiefs. I get it because of the depth, but again, I don't still think that's a round one need. So I'm not going to put him on the Chiefs. I'm not going to put him on the Bills. I already used that. Dolphins are fun. Jonathan Jones from CBS. Dolphins are a lot of fun. He's the guy who would fit right into their speed lifestyle, right? Like, that'd be fun. The Buccaneers are interesting. Yeah, so the Detroit Lions, I mean, you put him and Jameson Williams. It's kind of Jameson Williams going right, hopefully, right? Like, it's kind of just that replacement in their offense. I don't hate the idea of that because I don't really know if Jameson Williams is going to be a thing after all. The Ravens, I don't think is a great fit either because you have Zay Flowers, kind of a tiny wide receiver already in the offense. I'd rather the Ravens draft someone a bit bigger. Arizona, again, in a scenario where I'm assuming you don't take a wide receiver early. Yeah, Xavier Worthy, put him into that Hollywood Brown role. That's another one that's a great landing spot there. Dallas. That's my pick. I think Xavier Worthy would do a lot of good being the second option in offense where the number one guy gathers so much attention. Safeties are distracted. They're going that way. Boom. Over the top, Xavier Worthy. Yeah. He can be Brandon Cooks, but better. So give me Xavier Worthy to the Dallas Cowboys. Really? New England with Spencer Rattler at 34th overall is the consensus. He's moving up boards. And I like that. I like Spencer Rattler a whole lot. I don't think he's a round one player at all. I also don't think he's a round two player. But I like him. And I'm seeing a lot of these mocks with him are much older. Okay, so that's a bit of a thing here with Spencer Rattler. There's one pretty recent mock that has him go to the Rams at 19. Yeah, if he can go there, sit under that for a year, that would be really, really good for him. I think Spencer Rattler would be best off going to somewhere where he doesn't play immediately, but with a QB that he can either beat out or outlast, right? An older guy. What if you put Spencer Rattler on the Cowboys? And Dak's going into his final year. What if they move on from Dak? They do have Trey Lance on the roster too, but that doesn't scare me away. That could be interesting. I think that's kind of my only good landing spots really for Spencer Rattler that I see like immediate potential in. But I like him though. I like Spencer Rattler a lot. I think his arm is excellent. I know he had some issues early on in college, but I think he worked his way through them though, you know, and I think there's something to be said for a guy kind of learning as he goes. And he's almost feels like a veteran in this draft in a way because he was around for so long. Who we have next here? Oh, Keon Coleman. Okay, Keon Coleman to the New Orleans Saints. Again, stylistically, I don't love it because him and Olave overlap a little bit too much. Him going to Kansas City, I actually like that. I think they could use some size at receiver, and he would definitely be a different element. He would be what I was hoping Justin Ross could be in that offense, but never really was. Baltimore too. I don't love the player of Keon Coleman as a Baltimore Ravens fan. I don't love this pick. For Keon Coleman, I think that might be the best case scenario. He's the opposite of Zay Flowers. And so he could command a really just like an established role in the offense immediately. Rashad Bateman can get out of here, right? He's not stopping me at all from anything. I think that'd be really, really interesting. Good spot. Detroit. Actually, I think that's my favorite. I like the Baltimore landing spot. I like the Kansas City landing spot. Detroit, though, I think is my number one pick. I would prefer them over Green Bay. I was on here as well. I prefer Detroit there because Green Bay, I think he's going to have a hard time separating himself from Romeo Doubs. Detroit, though, Josh Reynolds is out of town. I think that's an exact landing spot, an exact role, an exact opportunity for a guy like Keon Coleman. I think A.D. Mitchell also could fit right into that role, too, if they chose him. I would really like that as well. There's a Houston one from the 13th. That's only a week ago. So they already had Stephon Diggs. This guy put him on to Houston. That's fun to think they're going to take another receiver. Like, that'd be fun. But no. Keon Coleman, Detroit. I love that pairing. Roman Wilson, the consensus has him going to the Colts. You got Detroit, Kansas City, Buffalo. Round 2 to the Jets. Round 2, Chicago. Round 3, Jacksonville. Round 2, Miami. Round 2, Pittsburgh. I think that's my spot for Roman Wilson. It gives him the chance to be the wide receiver 2 in an offense, where I think he needs to be. It's a guy in George Pickens who is going to command a lot of attention deep. And so Roman Wilson can make some hay underneath. He can kind of be a little bit of a do-it-all guy. I think he's also a rare receiver who I can see Arthur Smith actually liking a little bit. I would not love it, but quite frankly, Roman Wilson, I don't love the player. And so at least there he has a chance to establish himself as an immediate wide receiver 2. Versus I'm looking around these other landing spots, and the Jets are probably the only other one where I see that. Again, I'm eliminating Buffalo because I already used my AD Mitchell there. So yeah, I think the Steelers are then probably not here at Roman Wilson spot. So Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon here, and a lot of Chiefs, a lot of Bills, a lot of Cardinals. Do we have any others? We have some Jets in there, Ravens. That's probably my favorite one. Because I think he can do a little bit of everything. I think he brings a speed element to the game, but he's a little bit bigger than, Zay Flowers. I think that, the offense with the change of offense last year with Todd Monken as OC opens things up a little bit. So I'm going to put Troy Franklin on the Baltimore Ravens. If you've been watching for a little bit and you watch our wide receiver preview, you know I'm a big Troy Franklin guy. And so putting my favorite receiver with my favorite team might be a little cheeky, but I'm cool with it, though. I would quite be happy with that one. Next up, Ricky Pearsall. I love me some Ricky Pearsall. I'm not going to do Chiefs. I'm not going to do Bills. I'm not going to do Steelers. Who else do we have on the board available here? Okay, Atlanta. I think I'm trying to remember. Did I put anybody on Atlanta already? I don't think I did. That's an interesting spot for this guy because me and Ryan talked about this in the wide receiver preview also, that Ricky Pearsall, I think, could be a guy who could find a role immediately and really step into it and have some success. And I think Atlanta could be that spot where, like, you've got this Kyle Pitts who goes down the field. You've got this Drake London who goes down the field. Let Ricky just eat underneath. Let him kind of just be a short area target and get a lot of targets that way. New Orleans is interesting too. Michael Thomas being out of town, you can plug Ricky right in that Michael Thomas role, and he can have a whole lot of success there. I don't see Denver. Okay, there's a Denver. There's one Denver. I think Ricky Pearsall is like the one player in this entire draft who I would really like to have land with the Denver Broncos. It's really just him and Brock Bowers are really the two players who I would kind of like a little bit in Denver because of the Sean Payton offense. So next up, we have Ja'Tavion Sanders, the tight end out of Texas. The consensus mocks has him going to Miami. It would be a whole new part of the offense if they start to actually use a tight end. And really, gosh, a whole bunch of people have him going to the Chiefs in the end of round 1. That's weird to me. A Bengals is in here. A 49ers is in here. Tampa, Miami. I don't love any of these, not going to lie. New Orleans, sure, okay. Not 22 overall, but like later on in the draft, I guess that's my pick, is a New Orleans Ja'Tavion Sanders. I'm going to go then round 2. I don't think he's a first-round guy. I'm not a huge Ja'Tavion Sanders guy. I'm not a huge dynasty tight end drafter, though. I would rather kind of pay up for a veteran usually, or just kind of punt the position entirely if it's not tight end premium, and I don't play in tight end premium leagues. So, I don't love any of those fits, to be quite frankly honest with you, with Ja'Tavion Sanders. This is exciting. Jonathan Brooks, the RB1 in this draft, if he's healthy. A whole bunch of people have to go to Dallas. That's probably the best landing spot for him. A couple Ravens in there, a couple Packers, sure. But the Cowboys, I think, are where. Wow, holy cow. Round 6 for him going to the Rams on Fox Sports. If that happens, it's because there's major red flags with his knee. And in that case, he's well outside round 1. He's well outside round 2 for dynasty drafts. Round 3, I'm willing to take a shot because I like the player. But if he goes, Jonathan Brooks, he needs round 2 draft capital for me. If he goes like in this pick here with CBS, where he goes, I'm sorry, I don't have this. I don't have pull up. I opened up a new tab. Let's bring it back here. If he goes, there you go. There you can see now the Rams in round 6. But this one's interesting to me. The Cardinals CBS pick here. It's round 3. It'd be early round 3 because it's Arizona. But the fact that the Chargers and the Cowboys, and there's no Chargers, by the way, on this list anywhere, it really surprises me. The fact that early round 3 draft capital to Arizona, it's a good opportunity with just James Conner there. It would signal some confidence in his knee, but not enough. Like the Cowboys at 20, what are they, 24th, right, overall? But them in round 2, if he gets past the Cowboys' second round pick, I think that's my line. Where it's like, if he gets past that, I'm scared about the knee a little bit. If he goes to the Cowboys or earlier, I'm confident in the knee. Do we have any others? That might be the last one we got here. Oh, Xavier Legette, sure. Oh, I see Jalen right there to the Ravens. Who was this again? Xavier Legette. So yeah, Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Lions, Bills, 49ers, Steelers, Bills, Tampa. A lot of mocks have Tampa taking a receiver early on here. That one was done March 11th. I think that was before free agency. So that could be part of that. But I don't love any of those, considering the fact that I have other receivers going to those places, right? Like that's a factor in here. If they don't take receivers, yeah, Buffalo is always going to be the spot. I could see him being a pretty good fit there in, gosh, I mean, San Fran would be interesting because, like, if they trade Ayuk or Debo, either one, then of course. But even if not, like, you're always attracted to 49ers weapons, right? Like, they're always good. And so Xavier Legette going to San Fran would be really, really interesting for sure. Jalen Wright, this is our last one, it looks like. Yeah. So Jalen Wright going to my Baltimore Ravens. That would really signal doomsday to me for Keaton Mitchell. But where else we have here? We have the Packers, Cowboys, Raiders, Giants, Panthers. Round 5 to the Chiefs, I would hate just seeing him fall to round 5. I think Jalen Wright, round 3, round 4 kind of guy. But Denver Chargers, that's our winner. Put him in Chargers. Put him in literally the Keaton Mitchell role in the offense of Greg Roman, and let him be behind and kind of sharing with. Let him be the lightning for Gus Edwards, and just kind of let him cook. You know, I think he could be a big play machine for sure. And that's an offense where I think that, you know, there's an Austin Eckler that's missing, so he can get some pass catching work for sure. And I think it can be really, really good for him. So, guys, that was a quick look at the prospects and landing spots. Where do you want to see some of these guys go to? Put those in the comments down below. And stick around. We have got the NFL draft coming up this week. This Thursday, it's finally here. I don't have an exact schedule on when I'll be publishing stuff, but I'm going to try to crank out as much content next weekend as I possibly can. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, like there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff coming your way once we finally get the answers from the NFL draft. So I will see you guys then.